Self-care versus desperate care. Let's read about it. One distinction between being not so sick and sick is the difference between being able to engage in self-care versus relying on desperate care. When you're not so sick, visits to a doctor, practitioner, health coach, or trainer are geared to self-care versus outcries for help because you're so bad off. Many people who are not so sick are living their lives. Illness isn't impeding them or stopping them or holding them back from doing what they desire to do. And some of those desires lead into self-care. You're doing your workouts, your sauna, your facials, your meditations, your coffee shop visits, your scented candles, your travel plans, your shopping, your cosmetic doctor visits, your dental cleanings, your manicures and pedicures, your acupuncture, your massage, your breath work, your gathering and events. And when a small symptom arises, you tack on an occasional functional medicine doctor visit. Tending to mild or temporary symptoms gets absorbed into the self-care routine of life or wrapped up with a big self-care bow. You don't have to stop and say, I'm really sick and it's getting in the way of me doing what I want to do. The person who's sick relies on care that goes beyond self-care. It's desperate care. Getting through the day comes down to forms of care they really need so they can sustain themselves on their journey to heal. If a not-so-sick person had to cancel their appointment because of a storm, they'd still be fine. They may be disappointed, they may get some anxiousness or a little stress because things aren't going the way they anticipated. Still, their life moves on. The sick person is in a different situation. Every little element that's supporting the sick person counts. Their focus is on survival with their symptoms and illness. They're in the process of fighting to hold on to any freedoms they have left, fighting to get back the freedoms they once experienced, trying to find joy wherever they can in the process of trying to survive. And this person who's sick has forms of care that they rely on to meet their needs. It's not about selecting forms of care out of an abundance of fun options or personal choices that support their life. A sick person's needs are about survival. So much time and energy go into being sick. If a not so sick person has never experienced this, they may struggle to understand. Relating to a sick person when you've never been there before can be like driving past a homeless person living in a tent when you've never experienced homelessness. It's easy to be preoccupied as you're driving past that person. It's easy to think that's just a homeless person living in their tent and then move on to your next thought. What if you focus on the details of that person's life? What if you asked yourself, how did that person become homeless? When was the last time they bathed? When was the last time they ate? How do they go to the bathroom? Do their blankets have mold? Does their tent have a hole in it? Can they walk, or do they have walking pneumonia? What's their name? What do they need? How long have they been homeless? When a not-so-sick person runs into a sick person, they may look alike from the outside. And if a not-so-sick person has never experienced what the sick person is experiencing, they may not know the details to consider about this person's life. How long have they been sick? How bad is it? What foods can they eat or not eat? Can they even shower? Can they exercise? How much pain is that person in mentally or physically? How many doctors have they seen? Did they lose any friends from being sick? Are they suffering from PTSD from being sick? How many hours can they function during the day? And the list goes on. There are occasions when a not-so-sick person can become extremely absorbed in self-care. So absorbed that it's as if anything that doesn't relate to their own experience didn't happen or doesn't exist. If it doesn't fit within their frame of experience, then it doesn't matter or they just don't see it. A not-so-sick person who's absorbed in self-care can relate to someone's sprained ankle if they've had a sprained ankle. They can relate to someone's hay fever if they've had hay fever. They can relate to learning something new that someone is doing for their health if they can apply it in a way that helps themselves. It becomes a life of self-care to a point of saturation when there's no time to care about anything not pertinent to their own life. In this frame of mind, a not-so-sick person can unknowingly cause emotional injury to sick people they encounter. When a not-so-sick person can't see outside their own experience, they may judge what a sick person is choosing to do to heal, or what great lengths they're going to in order to try to heal and recover. A very sick person who has lost years of their life struggling and suffering, visiting dozens of doctors, spending tens of thousands of dollars, losing friends and family along the way, and even losing what feels like part of themselves from the harsh journey of being sick, when this person discovers a way out, finds a way to heal and recover, they may be misunderstood by a not-so-sick person. Because if a not-so-sick person can't relate to how hard it is for the sick person, how sick they really are, what it was like to be at their worst and fighting for their lives, then the not-so-sick person won't be able to relate to the sick person's recovery, how far they've come, the tools they've used, what they did to recover. You can feel like an oddity when you recover from chronic illness. What you should be is hurdled. The world of the not-so-sick should commend those. You can feel like an oddity when you recover from chronic illness. What you should be is heralded. The world of the not-so-sick should commend those who've recovered from chronic illness. They should raise their flags high, shouting out for others to know and learn. That doesn't always happen. The not-so-sick media can be unsupportive. A not-so-sick person may not take notice of someone's recovery if it doesn't apply to them, or if they do notice, they may misunderstand and even judge. The sick can find themselves facing judgment both for having been sick in the first place and for how they recover. It's easy to laugh off or brush aside these life-saving understandings if someone hasn't been humbled by suffering. That is until the not-so-sick get sick themselves.